So let's have a look at some of the timbers typically used in cladding. We've got pine or spruce, we've got naturally durable timbers such as larch and western red cedar, or we've got the hardwoods such as oak and sweet chestnut, and of course we've also got chemically modified or heat treated timbers. The species of wood also affects the way that you fix it. For softwoods, use a ring shank nail at least twice as long as the thickness of the wood. If you're going into high tannin woods such as oak, then use a stainless steel nail. And if you're fixing hardwood cladding, over drill and use a screw. And if you're going into greenwood, use a screw with a washer. Profiles typically used on cladding are shiplap, tongue and groove, board on board, or feather edge. Now, for vertical cladding, you wouldn't tend to use the shiplap, and you also wouldn't use the feather edge. But of course, for horizontal cladding, then the shiplap and the feather edge are the most common. When installing cladding, you need to make sure that you fix to treated battens, and also make sure there's at least a 19mm ventilated air gap behind the cladding, and that you've got a waterproof breather membrane on the building itself. And also you need to make sure that you've got insect screens at the top and the bottom, and that the cladding doesn't come any closer than 150mm from the ground. And the last thing is, don't be tempted to mitre the corners, because they will open up and that end grain is always vulnerable. When you're fixing shiplap, the overlap is determined by the moulding, but when you're fixing feather edge, of course that can vary. So make sure that you leave at least 15mm of overlap on those boards. So finally, on vertical boards with open joints, you need to make sure that you leave an expansion gap of anywhere between 8 to 15mm. And when it comes to finishing, water-based microporous systems are the easiest to apply, and they have the advantage of not trapping the moisture in so that they breathe. And of course, if you recoat before the system fails, you don't have to spend a lot of time rubbing down and preparing. But of course, pre-finished boards are always going to be a lot easier to look after.